All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to Simple Scrapper Live. This is our first episode in a while. We've been doing a lot of recorded videos, but I am so thrilled to be joining you live here on Crowdcast to talk about your core habits for a happy creative year. This is going to be so good, and I am so thankful for all of you who are watching live, as well as for those of you watching in the replay. My name is Jennifer Wilson, and I am your guide here at Simple Scrapper. We are a community of women and men and so many wonderful people who are dedicated to living passionately about feeling creative and about having a really intentional life. So today we're going to be blending those lifestyle topics and those creative topics to talk about how you can set yourself up for a really great year that's sustainable and so that you can maintain energy all throughout the year for your creative projects. Now, we're a group of scrapbookers here, but I want to feel inclusive to everyone who might be watching, whether you are a crafter or a card maker or a mixed media artist, whatever type of craft that you do, I want you to feel welcome today because what I'm going to share is totally applicable to absolutely everyone. These are some really essential habits that can not only impact your creative practice, but also other aspects of your life. When you do these things, you're going to set yourself up for a really good year. So I wanted to do this session today because I have seen something happen time and time again, and I see it happen in myself too. And that's at this time of the year, the beginning of January, we're so excited for all of our goals. We're so excited by everything we want to do and new projects we want to start. And then like mid-February comes around and things are not going as well. Maybe there's some things that are still going, but that huge energy we had at the beginning of January has kind of faded back to normal levels. And some of our goals and objectives for the year have kind of already gone to the wayside. Maybe we're not going to the gym as much. Maybe we're, kind of just getting back into old patterns. Well, the 5 habits that I'm going to teach you today will help you get out of that cycle. It'll help you maintain that momentum all year long. And if you practice this inside of your hobby in a really, really specific, focused way, there's going to be this ripple effect into other aspects of your life where maybe some of those challenges are even harder. So what I want you to do today is I want you to set everything aside. Whether you're watching live or on the replay, I really want you to just take this time together to really think about how to apply these 5 habits to your life. Maybe you're already doing some of these habits. Maybe you've tried in the past and you need to figure out why it didn't work and how you can tweak it. But I really want you to take this time so that you can dive in and get as much out of it as you can. So try not to be multitasking there. I know how tempting it is. We're going to run just about an hour here. I do want to be respectful of your time. I'm going to go through the 5 habits. And then before we get to the Q&A, I'm actually going to tell you a little bit about Refresh, which is our member retreat coming up this month. I know we've got lots of members here in the chat room too, and they may have some things to say about Refresh as well. All right, again, thank you for joining me, and let's dive in. So habit number 1, I think, is probably the most important. And this is the habit of reflection. And for some people, this comes totally naturally. You're doing this all the time anyway. But for others, it could feel a little more uncomfortable. And you may feel resistant to looking inside, to taking that pause and really thinking about how you feel and how things are working. But there's a lot of different ways that you can do reflection. And you may have kind of expectations of what that looks like. You can journal. You can journal in a kind of personal, casual setting. Just I'm going to sit down and I'm going to journal my thoughts. You can do morning pages. Our members are working through the Artist's Way this year. We have a study group going, and we're doing 3 long-handed pages of writing every single morning as a way of getting everything out of our head and clearing the slates for our creativity. You can join in with others and answer questions like in forums or on Facebook and really just actively engage, but really respond and think genuinely about the questions being asked for you, not just hitting the like button or adding a heart or an emoji, but really thinking about the question and what it means for you. This reflection could come in your scrapbooking itself. It could be going a little bit deeper on a page and connecting stories across time. It could be, really thinking about how things have shifted and what your role is in all of these stories that you're telling. Just the simple act of getting yourself and your perspective into more of your stories can be a way to add reflection. And one of the core principles here at Simple Scrapper in terms of this idea of taking this pause to think is we like to do that on lots of different time scales, but I think seasonal is really what has made this shift for so many people, that if you build this habit of reflection on a daily basis, but even if you build this larger habit of reflecting at least once a quarter, you'll find that you look forward to that time to go inward, really think about what's working, what's not, what needs to change, and then make those corrections. And then you don't have to dive back in there until 3 months later, but you're gonna find yourself craving that connection that comes with just slowing down, thinking, releasing your thoughts, getting things onto paper or out in the world. This reflection can even come through conversations with friends and family, and just really stopping and taking that time to connect, but also to release, to just think about what it all means and how it's all fitting together. And when you do this, and you do it again and again, you're going to feel this sense of calmness and clarity and focus. And I know that's so often the hugest barriers to getting started with any kind of creative project, is that you feel like, oh, I'm just so tangled up in everything else that's going on in my life that I can't dive in. Like, I just can't disconnect. But the more that you practice this active reflection, the more you can make that transition from the hustle and bustle for everyday life. All right, so that was reflection. Number 2, let me see, is there anything else I wanted to say on reflection? I will pause here and say, if you haven't seen it yet, there is an Ask a Question area. That's where you can submit questions for me to answer live here on the broadcast. And so if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, do jump over to Crowdcast so that you can join us live. We're at crowdcast.io/simplescrapper, and you can see this particular session if you haven't joined us in the past and you're not already here. All right, so habit number 2. So habit number 1 is reflection. And there's lots of different ways that you can bring this into your life. And you can even start super, super small. Even as much as posting regularly on Instagram and just adding a few heartfelt thoughts to what this image means to you. That's reflection. All right, number 2 is proximity. And this one also has a lot of different directions. So it could mean physical proximity. It could mean keeping supplies and projects out where you can see them and readily access them. I love to have something kind of just the baby parts getting started, like supplies gathered for a layout. I call that a micro kit. And then I marinate on it. I just really sit and think and let my brain kind of solve the puzzle of how that's going to come together. And then I can just sit down and dive right in. And right now I have my December daily project over here. I'm finishing that up this month. And having it here right on my desk has made it so easy to just jump back in and add a little thing here and there. And also I've noticed that even just the compact nature of it, the fact that it is a 6x8 album, has made it so much easier to just dive right in because I can fit it right here on my desk. It can also be proximity of supplies, keeping your most used tools close at hand. It could mean making some organizational changes so it's easier to get to things. It could mean decluttering so that it's easier to get to the things you actually like and you don't have to wade through. But proximity can mean other things too. It can mean engaging more in online conversations and getting together with others, whether in person or online, to really stay connected to your hobby. So proximity is about being close to your hobby and all the different little things that help you do that. It could mean taking photos with your phone all the time on a regular basis, maybe even participating in a 365-day project. There's so many different things that you can do to stay close and connected and think about the idea of proximity. You can even make it a project or a habit to go through your albums and make that part of your life. So one of the things that I'm working on this year, and I wasn't planning on getting this out, but it just popped into my head, is a memory planner. And so this is a Me and My Big Ideas memory planner, and I'm just going to show you. This was my first week, not adding any photos. It's just journaling, and it's a fun gratitude practice for me that involves using stickers, because that makes it more fun for me. And so by doing this every day, I'm staying connected to my memories. I'm staying close to my supplies, and I'm doing it here in my creative space. So it's the best way that I've found to end the day. And I've tried various ways of doing this in the past, but by starting and ending my day in my creative space, I'm feeling that much more connected to my hobby. All right. So, all right, we have 2 habits so far, reflection and proximity. And I hope you're seeing that these are so open to interpretation, to what fits your life right now. And there's also so many tiny baby steps that you can take to get started. These aren't habits that are going to get involved of, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, going to the gym every day. That's hard, and that takes a lot of commitment. These habits are easier and softer and will help you not only in your creative hobby, but in other areas of your life as well. If you practice these habits, they'll actually help you with those other things like getting to the gym. All right. Habit number 3 is to say yes more often. And as I was thinking about this, I really wanted it to be to say no, to think about less, to think about getting rid of things. But I realized when you're doing that, what you're doing is you're saying yes to the life you want to live. You're saying yes to the space that you want in your life, for the time that you need for yourself and your hobby. You're saying yes to the goals that you've set for this year. You're saying yes to the values that you've established and you've identified as important to you. So when you say yes to those things, all the other stuff becomes so much more clear, because it has to fit within that boundary that you've given yourself of what you've said yes to. And our brains don't like negativity. We don't like being told we can't have the cookie. And so when you focus on this attitude of saying yes, you can feel so much more ease in making these small changes in your life that support more creativity, more art, more scrapbooking, more reflection as well. All right. Nikhil asked, will you have the list on a handout? I will definitely do something. This will probably go into a blog post, and I'll put the list there as well for you guys. All right. So we have 3 habits so far: reflection, proximity, and saying yes more often. All right. Number 4 is action. And this one can be hard, but it's probably one of the most important. These are all really important, but action probably here is the hardest one, because it's about more than just showing up here or other places online to engage. It's about the follow-up. It's about taking the next step. And when you create a habit of action, you build momentum, which makes it even easier to take more action. And so what I like to do is I always encourage our members here and those in our community to follow along, to make those first actions easier. And so that could be using sketches for your layouts. That could be participating in a challenge, whether it's like a big month-long challenge thing, like a photo prompt thing, or it's a single challenge to make a specific layout. When you create this habit of action, it will, this is the one probably that really permeates into so many parts of your life, because the more you take that action and you keep momentum going, the more you're going to find yourself tending to other areas in your life as well. And I think the more it's totally reciprocal, because the more you do those little things elsewhere in your life, the more that's going to come back over here to your hobby as well. So creating a habit of action can look like putting a date on your calendar for regular scrapbooking time. It can mean attending crops, either online or with friends. It can mean practicing, following along, and listening to others' instructions, whether that's to a single YouTube video or making it a habit of watching a process video and scrapbooking along with it. It's about buying that class and then actually doing the steps, and then maybe not buying another class until you finish. It's about really, really focusing on follow through and continuing to the end. And what will happen here is that you're going to end up finishing more things. And we know what happens when you finish. It's one thing to get started, to get the ball rolling, but when you finish, that creates probably 10x momentum compared to anything else, because you feel pride, you feel accomplishment, you feel satisfaction. And so the more you create the habit of action, the more things you're going to finish, and the more you're just going to be at that next level of being able to get things done in a way that is totally satisfying and creates that happy life that you're looking for. All right. So we have 4 habits so far: reflection, proximity, say yes, action, and then the last one. This one, I'm not quite sure what the word should be for, and so I'm going to call it camaraderie, but it really just means fun. You need to have more fun, because like you, there's so many parts to my life that are not fun. I don't like cleaning up the cat litter, and I don't like having to do the laundry, but those are things that are just part of life. But the more that we can add fun into it, the more that we can feel like you're, with others, that you feel in community with others, the more everything else just feels happier. One of the hardest parts of this day and age is our disconnection from other people. We're at home more. We raise our children more at home in 2018 than we did 20, 30, 40 years ago. It was so much more of a community. They always say it takes a village to raise your children. And the way we have it today is that we're moms at home or dads at home too, and we end up being stuck here. But that's okay. We have this thing called the internet that can sometimes even be a lifeline that helps you remember that you're not alone in this journey, that everyone else is going through the same things, and we all have ups and downs, but we can join together and we can spend that hour in a live crop and have some fun. We can work on that challenge. We can go to the retreat. We can come together and share our passion for creative projects. We can share our passion for photos and words and all those fun little scrapbook supplies, and remember that we're not alone. Because sometimes, especially, I don't know about you guys where you live, it's been minus 10 degrees. So we've been stuck inside for a full week. It's finally above freezing again, and we're venturing outside. It's still quite cold, but it can feel really lonely. And I don't want you to feel that way this year. I want you to feel that sense of camaraderie that connects you with others. And whether you find that in scrapbooking, or you find that in a church group, in an exercise group, you find that somewhere with other people who share your passions, your values, and even ones who don't. When you find camaraderie with those who are different from you, you can even expand your horizons. And we can even find more deeper sense of understanding of others when we do that. And that just enriches our stories. All right, so those are the 5 habits. Reflection, and reflection is about going inward and thinking. It doesn't have to be the hard stuff all the time, but it's just about taking that pause. Proximity, staying connected through your hobby, both physically and mentally. Saying yes to what's important to you, to your values, to your goals and objectives right now, and remembering those throughout the year so that you know that you're going to maintain the space and time for what's important to you. It's about creating a habit of action, following along and keeping the ball rolling. And then finally, camaraderie, injecting whatever fun you can have into your hobby and all of your life so that you can just feel good more of the time, even when you're doing the hard, boring stuff like managing photos or lots of photos and doing that big vacation album that sounded like a good idea, but you have 2,000 photos and it's just becoming a nightmare, or doing the laundry or mopping the floors. Whatever it is you have to do, you can bring more fun into that with music, with friendship, and it can be so much better than last year. All right, thank you, Lindsay, for typing all of those into the chat box for me. We'll definitely put this in a blog post afterwards. What I want to do here is I invite you guys again to submit questions. I will take questions on absolutely anything, but the main focus here is on habits and routines and planners, getting things done, productivity, simplicity, how to really set yourself up for a solid creative year. And I'm super looking forward to diving into those questions with you guys. But before we get to that, I do want to tell you a little bit about Refresh. Refresh is our members-only virtual retreat. And we do this once a season, and it is 7 days together online. It's kind of like an online camp for scrapbookers. And each day, there's a really small exercise. I ask you to do one small thing. Maybe takes 10, sometimes up to 30 minutes, but in the 10 to 15 minute range typically. And there's always opportunity to do a little bit more if you have the time and energy. And then we reflect on it. So you're not only practicing action, you're practicing reflection. You're practicing the ability to say yes to what your values are and setting aside time for yourself. You're staying connected to your hobby and you're doing it in the company of others. And so we do that every day for 7 days. And each day kind of adds on the last. We have great conversations, and all of the activities fall into 3 categories. We're going to do some planning, which is very loose for thinking ahead. It could be reflecting. It could be actually writing some plans, thinking about projects, kind of a loosely phrased as planning. Organizing, which could be decluttering, using your stash, clearing spaces, clearing projects that you're never going to finish, and even mental blocks. And then actually creating. We make stuff together. Sometimes it's scrapbook projects, sometimes it's full layouts, or maybe even starting a mini book. I won't ever make you do anything too big, though I may plant some seeds for projects that you want to start later. Sometimes photo exercises, collages, things where you can do, drawing, worksheets. It's all different every single season. And our next session starts next Thursday, January 18th. And this is our winter session. And I'm so excited because we started planning this right at the end of the last session in the fall. And I'm excited to dive in again with our members. I'm going to pop the button up here for becoming a member here in the Crowdcast. It's the little green button. So if you're not already a member, I would love for you to consider it. There's 3 different pricing options now. We just released a brand new annual option for $150 a year. That is the best price we can offer. But you can see different options there, as well as everything else that you would get when you become a member. I know we have lots of members here. I'm saying yay, Refresh from April, excited, says Carol. Lindsay's a new member, so she's excited. So this is one of our favorite times of the season, is when we get into Refresh. It creates so much momentum and so much energy, and just really, we call it like the reset button for your hobby. It's your chance to say, the past is the past. I'm going to re-engage, reconnect with my why I'm a scrapbooker, why I want to create, make a few things to get the ball rolling, and then set on a course for the next quarter. It's super fun. Each day, your lessons are delivered in the mornings in US time zone. And then throughout Refresh, we have 4 live crops. And they're all at different times so that hopefully someone can attend at least one of those sessions. So there's, I think, 2 at 8:30 in the evening Central Time, 1 at 1 p.m., and 1 at 9 a.m. And I do that to try to make sure that someone can attend at least one of those, depending on where you live and your schedule and all of that. But you don't necessarily have to attend live. A lot of the action ends up happening in our Facebook group in between those crops, as folks share their projects and ask questions and respond to the daily prompts. So it's so fun. And as Kim just mentioned in the chat, you have access to everything ongoing into the future as well. All right, so that's Refresh. Happy to answer any other questions about that as well. Please do send them to the Ask a Question area. But I am going to dive into some questions here for you guys. Let's see. Ooh, okay. Reviewing these here. Okay. All right, we're going to start with Anne's question. She says she needs lots of pointers. How do other retirees work around their hubby needing so much attention? I'm sure that a lot of retirees and empty nesters may be having the same kind of challenge. How do you balance this, newfound freedom to spend your time as you will, but you have a partner in your life that you want to spend some of that time with? So I think the most important thing is to have an open and honest conversation about what your needs are and what your ideal day looks like. Now, none of us actually ever have an ideal day, but it's worth having the conversation about how you'd like to spend your time, and then talking with your partner about how they would like to spend their time. And then you see where those overlap and when you might want to plan on spending time together and when you would want to spend time apart. And I think just being really open and kind of revisiting that conversation every quarter or so, every 6 months, will help you not develop resentments, and it will help you carve out that time for yourself that you're so much relishing now that you have it. But you do need to still be diligent in the same way that you were when you were working, to have a loose schedule and figure out these are the times in which it's best for me to spend on my personal time, on my creative projects, and this is when I'm going to dedicate it to my family and whatever that looks like for you. All right, thanks for your question, Anne. All right. Okay, Tiffany has a good question here. She says, I haven't been motivated to print or order photos. How can I make it more enjoyable and doable so I don't dread it so much? I can't scrap if I don't have the photos. And that is so true, because I actually ran out of photo paper the other day and I had to order some more. And so I can't scrapbook until I can print some more photos. So I do get that. I have a couple tips for you. Number one is you might want to think about printing at home. These days, I'm finding that the quality and price are comparable to a mail order service. And my favorite one is Persnickety Prints. Now, I know there's lots of things that will send you free prints nowadays, and your local, drugstore type prints. Those might be a little bit cheaper, but they may not be as high of quality as you get with, say, mail order. And so to me, it's worth printing at home because that means I can print in smaller batches. And I can print basically on the fly when I want to create something, instead of having to sort through to make it worthwhile to send my photos out. And so that's the first thing to consider. And I know our members have lots of opinions on their favorite printers. I have the Canon PixMob Pro 100. It's a large format printer, which is crazy because I print mostly 4x6s on it, but I do like having it for printing 12x12s as well. So that's worth considering, and you should figure out which one would be best for you. But I understand that's not feasible for everyone. You may not have the space, or it may not be a purchase that's, sensible for you right now. So with that in mind, I want to encourage you to try to make it more of a habit to do the managing. So let's just say every day you check your phone to make sure your photos are going where they need to be, and maybe you're culling through and deleting any bad photos, like the ones that are the black screen or your feed or whatever. And then once a week, kind of tidying those up, whatever it is you do, whether you edit or not, whatever you do to kind of get your photos ready to print, do that once a week. And then once you have enough to place an order, because you may not within a week, then go ahead and place that order. But you'll find that the more you can create smaller habits within a week, the more you'll be able to get photos ordered without feeling totally overwhelmed by the huge batch of photos. I think waiting a month for most scrapbookers is probably going to be too much because we just take too many photos these days. So you're going to need to create some daily or weekly habits to better support that printing. Now, if you print locally, you might find that you can just send them off weekly and make that part of your week. I have a friend who sends her photos off every single Sunday, picks them up on Monday on the way home from work, and then she has things to scrap with all week long. So think about what type of routines might help you to make that less intimidating and breaking it down into smaller chunks so it's not so overwhelming. Another tip to kind of beyond this logistical part is to really think about the stories while you're sorting your photos. Think about what the photo means, what it reminds you of, what's going on in your life, what it symbolizes. Start making those mental connections because that's what fills your heart, and that's what makes it much less of a chore. Is if you can kind of take a positive mental perspective on those photos while you're sorting them, you'll be able to get through them with less drudgery. So I hope that's helpful, Tiffany. All right. Ooh, we got some big questions here. I'm going to start with a simpler one here. All right. Honor Ray asks, do you have a specific time in the evening for your memory planning? So yes, pretty much. I have been doing it right after my daughter goes to bed. And sometimes there's a large window between when she goes to bed and when I go to bed, and sometimes it's a very, very short window. And I'm actually trying to shorten that so that I can get to bed earlier to support my morning pages in the morning. So it's typically, between 8:30 and 9:30 in the evening is when she goes to bed, and then I come in here and I wrap up the day. And then sometimes I end up doing a little more work, and sometimes I'm doing other things to relax. But it's pretty consistently at that time of night. Of all the habits that I'm currently working on, which include morning pages every morning, drinking more water, which I got my water bottle here, and the memory planning's been one of the easiest for me. And I know part of that's that I like playing with the stickers, and I've never been a sticker girl when it comes to my scrapbooking. But for some reason, the stickers on a planner, I can do that. And there's just so much maybe more freedom to it. But I really liked that. And I just got some of these, me and my big ideas, happy memory keeping stickers that go with the planners as well. And so they're the perfect size. There's a lot of the ones that are, say, these big squares that fill a rectangle. So I don't feel like I have to fill the whole thing every time. And so that's what I've been doing. And I'm finding it really fun. I'm not adding any photos because this is really it's a gratitude journal and very tiny creative practice for me. It's not a scrapbook in that sense. And then I'm combining words and photos. Okay. Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, Dion asks, she says, Jennifer, could you give some more examples of the saying yes habit and what that might look like? So if we go back to the original perspective here, is that we want to do less. And how do we do that? By saying yes more. So let's just take a life example here. I have a 6-year-old daughter. She's starting to get involved in lots of activities. And it's important to me. One of my values is, and our family values, is to spend time together as a family in the evenings. And that's eating dinner together, reading books together, you know, all of those types of things. And so when I say yes to that type of space, what that looks like is choosing not to enroll in the extra session of the activity or to add another activity into the evening. All right, so that's one example. Saying yes would also be like, let's say you want to have time in your scrapbooking week. Let's just say, think of all the creative time in a week. And you want to make sure that you have time to consume inspiration or to follow your inspiration, whether that's like there's a new class opportunity, there's a new project that comes up, or a new product that you want to buy. You want to have the space to be able to say, yeah, that looks cool, let's do that. And so what that looks like is probably not setting too many priorities in advance and saying, I want to get all these things done this quarter. When really you want to probably get 1 or 2 things done so that you can maintain that space for those other opportunities. All right, that's another example. Let's see. Okay, here's another one. And this is almost the flip of it. So if your desire is that you want to say yes to using more of your stash and you want to have less stuff, so it's less overwhelming. So what that's going to look like is making choices that involve being very mindful about how you bring new products into your home and how you're using the products you do have. And so it's trying to keep that positive frame on what you're doing and why you're trying to do it, while making choices that could be viewed very negatively, like not buying the thing. But see, you can see in my examples here, it really depends on what you are personally saying yes to. It's going to look different for everyone. All right, I hope those examples were helpful. Okay. Jessie has a great question. How can I organize my photos? And she has years worth of them. We have a class called Photo Crush, and you can find that at simplescrapper.com/challenge. It's a free class where you can be guided through the process of organizing your photos. And this deals primarily with digital photos. You can kind of use the same structure for working through your photo prints, but it's really designed for managing your digital photos. And it's really about breaking things down into small batches, creating a central home for all of your photos, and then slowly bringing everything in. Because the problem that most people have, whether it's you're talking about digital photos or boxes of prints, is that they're all over the place. They're on different devices. There's duplicate copies, and you don't know where everything is. So it's about designating that one single home. We're just going to call the pen the home right now. This is your home, and you're trying to bring all the photos to that place. And when you bring a photo in, you say, do I already have this one here or not? Oh, I already have this one. Okay, I guess I can get rid of this copy. Oh, I don't have this one, so this one's going to stay here. It's about really thinking about bringing them all to that one central location so that you know where they all are, and then you can work on better organization within that. But the key step is getting them all in that one single place. And so then that's Photo Crush. It is at simplescrapper.com/challenge. Okay. So here's a question from Clemencia. She asks, I have a hard time taking action, not because I procrastinate, but because I put other things first. Besides setting my priorities straight, what other advice can you give us in order to take serious action towards our dreams and goals this year? That's a big one. I think what I have figured out is that all that other stuff that you're probably putting first will still get done when you choose the other thing. When you choose maybe the harder thing, the more adventurous thing, or the thing that's going to be the most nourishing or fulfilling, the other stuff still has to get done. So it's kind of similar to the idea of paying yourself first. In the end, you still have to pay the piper and pay all the bills. But when you pay yourself first, when you invest in refilling your own well, that will happen. And then you figure out kind of naturally how that other stuff works. And I would say last year, I really tried to practice this more. And I found that the stuff that had to get done still got done. Maybe not always as well, and maybe I got behind on some things, but I felt like the important stuff was getting done. And you very quickly figure out what really is important. These things that you're choosing to do instead of your dreams and goals, they're probably not as important as you think they are. Maybe some of them are, but for a lot of them, they may not be. And they're things that you're going to end up doing anyway once you've made that commitment and taken that action. So I would also think about your energy level. I know that I work best in the morning, and so I like to give the best energy to my best projects in the morning if I can. It's not always possible, but when I can make that happen, I have a much better day, and I have so much more energy to give to all those other little things that need to be tended to. So I hope that's a really big question. I hope that's helpful for getting the ball rolling for you. All right. Oh, Marge has a good comment here. She says, Photo Crush is the best thing I ever did for my photos. Highly recommend taking the time to do this class. Thank you, Marge. That's terrific. All right. So Carol has a good question here. She asks, how have your crop dates been going? Did you keep doing them or set a different option up for yourself? So I totally set up something different, and you're going to see why here. If any of you are familiar with Gretchen Rubin's work, she has these things called the 4 tendencies. And I always thought I was an upholder, which means that I can do stuff without external accountability. But it turns out I'm really an obliger, and I need accountability from others to get things done. And when I set a crop date for myself, sometimes I can meet it, but most of the time I'm going to blow it off. So what I did is I added crops to the membership so that I can crop with you guys and I get things done. And the thing is, it creates so much momentum just by showing up for that accountability. I'm more likely to keep creating in, the hours and days afterwards than I would have otherwise. So anything that you can do to build in accountability for yourself, if you're that type of person, that can not only help you get it done in that moment, but gives you that trickle-down effect to keep doing it later. So that's what I've done, and that's really working for me. Part of me wants to do even more, but we've already got quite a few things on the schedule. But I know it's been super helpful to me to know that, I'm under the gun and I have to create at this time, and whether or not I feel creative or not. And I always find my flow and I always get into it. So sometimes it just takes that little thing to really get going. All right. Marge says, maybe we need a memorabilia crush. I will say I have made some progress with my memorabilia. If you guys have been around here a while, I had a table over here with all of the kindergarten memorabilia. I went through all of it over Christmas break. I got rid of some things that I realized I shouldn't have saved, and I fit everything else in a single box. And I labeled it Emily Kindergarten. And maybe someday it'll go in an album, maybe it won't, but at least it's tidy, it's put away, it's culled down. and I can go move on to the next pile of memorabilia that I need to deal with. But that's definitely a hard one. Okay. Okay, here's a question from Tanya. She says, I was reflecting this morning during my walk about my goals for scrapbooking this year, and it came to me that I always have the same goals: organizing digital prints, printed photos, and getting my pages into albums. I always add them to my seasonal planner, yet I never do it. I guess I need new goals, but these are things that I feel I need to do. Do you have any thoughts? All right, this is a really juicy question. So first, you need to ask why these goals are important to you. And you may uncover some things. You may discover that some of them aren't that important or aren't going to contribute to getting more things done or aren't going to contribute to your satisfaction. Or you're going to discover that, gosh, that is very deeply important to me, and I need to find a way to make it a priority. For those latter things, that's when you need to probably bring in some accountability, whether that's publicly announcing a date for taking one baby step, checking in with our Friday check-ins in our member group, anything you can do to kind of keep the ball rolling towards that goal, but breaking it down and getting support for it, that will help. But if the answer was the first one, that maybe it isn't important, that's when maybe the goal shouldn't be on your list. And it's always a hard decision. I know I've certainly had projects that kept kind of hanging around, but I wasn't working on them. And some of them I've let go, I've backburnered for maybe sometime in the future. And other ones I had to make changes to make it easier for me. The best example for me in my own organizing photos is I always felt like I needed to set the weekly routine of getting into Lightroom and culling all my photos. And I had to sit down at my computer to do it. Well, at the end of the week, the last thing I want to do is spend more time on the computer. But I do spend a lot of time still on my phone. So I'm doing more managing of my photos on my phone than I ever did before, because I can do it from anywhere and I can still be kind of, in company with my family when they're all doing other things as well, but still being accessible while I'm flipping through photos on my phone. So thinking about letting go, thinking about accountability or other ways to actually make it happen and how you can get support. And then finally thinking about tweaks that you can make to better support habits around these projects. Because maybe they're not actually projects, maybe they're just habits that you need to change, and it shouldn't be a project that goes on your priority list. It just needs to be something that you do. So I hope that's helpful, Tanya. All right. Okay. Whew. We are getting through here. We have one last question here. Definitely, if you have more questions, please submit them. We have a few minutes left here. Erin says, I did some major reflection in September last year that really helped me focus on how I wanted to move forward. And so I'm doing that. But my biggest overwhelm is my memorabilia. Any tips for storing that and then making sure it gets used on a page? I do have them stored by month and year in file folders, but I have so much now as I haven't gotten to all those events yet. So yeah, I should have answered this when I was talking about my memorabilia as well. But I think the first question to ask yourself is, if you don't turn to this memorabilia to use on a page very often, you should ask, do I need to scrapbook with my memorabilia? And I think for a lot of people, it ends up being no. Memorabilia can be clunky. It can be difficult to work with. You may have concerns about not being acid safe and protective of your photos. So I often tend to not scrapbook memorabilia unless I'm doing pocket pages. I might insert some things then, but I don't, it's not an important habit to me. I'd rather save it separately. And over time, I always winnow it down to a smaller number of things. But I like having those things. I like just rifling through. I have a folder from high school that has just all these little nuggets. And I wouldn't ever want to scrapbook with it. I just like having these things together and saying, this is Jennifer's little folder of high school memorabilia. There's value, and that's still memory keeping, to have it in a box. So maybe your storage solution is good as it is. So that's the first place I want you to think is really, do you need to incorporate that into your scrapbooking? And is that becoming a block that's preventing you from doing more scrapbooking? And if you released it, what would that look like? What would your productivity and what would your creative energy feel like? All right. So the flip side of that is that if it is super important to you, then I recommend creating more micro kits where you gather supplies for a single layout that include your photos, all the supplies you're going to need. Doesn't mean you can't shop your stash, but just gathering things together, but then bring that memorabilia into that micro kit as well. So that you have this collection of things that you're going to need, and basically your memorabilia becomes part of your supplies. So you don't have to remember, it's already there when you sit down to scrapbook. And so if that's important to you, that's what I recommend doing. I hope that's helpful, Erin. All right. Oh, okay. Marge has a little bit of a technical question. Have you used Lightroom Creative Cloud on your phone? I'm a bit scared of it, but linking it to my Lightroom catalog would give me more time to delete and organize photos. So the answer is yes. I was using the Lightroom. It was previously called Lightroom Mobile, and then I think it was called something else in the middle, and now it's called Lightroom Creative Cloud. That's what I'm using on my phone. It syncs very nicely with both Lightroom Classic on the computer, which is the kind of what you would know as Lightroom, and then there's a new version called Lightroom Creative Cloud that is basically the cloud version where everything is all synced, but it has more limited features and it auto organizes your photos. We can get into all that in a different conversation. So what I'm saying is at first I was intimidated too, and I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. But I'm finding that if I create a synced collection in Lightroom on my computer, it will show up on my phone. And if I create one on my phone, it shows up on my computer, and it shows in a subfolder called From Lightroom Mobile. And so I've just started putting all of my synced collections in that From Lightroom Mobile, and so that I can see them everywhere. And I never really used a lot of collections like that before, but it's super handy if I'm like working on a specific project and I want to like flag specific photos. I am using that. And so I don't think there's any reason to be intimidated, and we can certainly talk more if you run into some technical snags. So Lightroom has made some changes, but I think it's going to be okay. And I think there's even going to be some people who end up using the CC version on their computers as well. And I can share more about that another time. All right. Let's see. Cynthia shared funstampersjourney.com as a reference here. Thank you, Cynthia. I may have missed the conversation in the chat about what that was related to. All right. Woo, so much good chat here. Thank you, Kim, for being here. Kim is my teaching assistant, and I'm so grateful for all of her support and like keeping you guys wrangled. I'm always so glad to have this time together with you guys. And whew, okay, let's recap, and then we will depart. So we've got 5 habits that when you practice these, they are going to support your creative year. They're going to help you simplify, help you feel more creative and motivated, so that all throughout 2018, you can feel as excited about life and your hobbies and your priorities as you do right now. So those habits are reflection, proximity, saying yes more often, action, and creating that habit of action, and a habit of camaraderie and fun. So when you do these things and you make them part of your life, you will feel more connected to your scrapbooking, more connected to others, and just more filled up. And isn't that what we all really want? So, and if you want some help practicing these habits, next week on Thursday, we're starting Refresh. This is our winter session of our virtual retreat. I would love for you to join us. You can click the Become a Member button to learn more about everything else that's included with membership, including that retreat, and to join us. And I hope that you will consider doing that. That's really the only thing we offer right now is the membership, and Refresh is kind of our flagship signature event, what we do every single quarter to reconnect with our hobbies and stay motivated all year long. So I hope that is helpful to you. Again, my name is Jennifer Wilson, and I am your guide here at Simple Scrapper. I absolutely love spending this time with you guys, and Honoré just popped in with the question, so I'm going to answer it here. Oh, because it's really important. She says, could we have the creative map in landscape orientation? So I just want to mention briefly that we have this new tool called the Creative Roadmap. And it's basically a blueprint throughout your quarter. And it's an idea that you can set your priorities and participate along with the Simple Scrapper community or elsewhere to help you stay on track throughout the season. And that's just one of the other things we do here at Simple Scrapper. So again, I'm so happy that I got to spend this time with you to talk about core habits for a happy creative year. I hope this was a worthwhile time for you, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Bye-bye.